just finished the chemical waving portion. This is by far the shortest setup time that you're going to get. It's still going to be 2 minutes, but there's just so many more things that you have to put away and pull out in between these two services. It's really important to understand and really make sure that you can manipulate the hair so you can move through this procedure the quickest. Now the reason why there's such a short amount of time is because, again, with the perms, there's so many perm rods that you have to put into your separate from the end wraps, where the end wraps go into the garbage and the perm rods go into the to be disinfected. And then you have to get out your bowls and then your clips and your brushes for the virgin hair lightening service. Now the first thing that you're going to want to do, just like always, is going to be sanitize your hands. You're going to see that I'm going to sanitize my hands, and I'm going to go ahead and part off the hair into 4 panels. Now, all that's going to look like is I'm just going to go with a apex to the mastoid process, which is right behind the ear. I'm just going to clip that off. And I'll do the same on the opposite side. And you can see that I'm keeping the panels within the front relatively small, just because, again, I want to manage my time the most efficiently. And in the back, I'll create from the apex all the way down to the nape, where we have a lot more hair, but we're going to be doing our easier applications in the back. Now again, with butterfly clips, you'll be able to achieve a little bit more control. So your section should look visibly neater than what you see here. So you can see that I have the 4 sections out here. Now, even though we're going to be working into our virgin hair lightening first, the first service that we actually have to do is perform a PD test. Now, what that PD test is a predisposition test. A predisposition test will be done 24 to 48 hours before you do any color service. Now, the reason why you want to do a predisposition test is to make sure that our client is not allergic to any of the products that we'll be using on them. So we're going to be applying this before the hair lightening, which is going to be the bleach. That way it has some time to sit on, and we can check for a reaction, and then we can go into our retouch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of cotton, or in this case I'm just going to get a little torn piece of paper towel. I'm going to spray it over the trash can so it's nice and damp. And I'm going to go to behind the ear and just clean off a little patch behind the ear. Now that that's clean, I'm going to dispose of that, and I'm going to grab my product. Now again, the predisposition is in reference to the color, so I'm going to grab my color product, and I'm going to be putting it into my dark bowl. You'll see that I have 2 dark bowls here today. But at your board exam, you'll have a dark bowl and a light bowl. The dark bowl will represent the color retouch, and the light bowl will represent the lightening. So I don't need too much product here because I'm just doing a little bit of a patch. You can see that I've just grabbed a very little bit, and I'm going to grab a Q-tip. And again, because I don't have a Q-tip, I'm just going to make do with my tint brush. And I'm just going to grab it with the corner of my tint brush, and just going to apply a nice big patch to behind the ear. Now from across the room, this could be a little bit too small for the examiner to see. So at this point, I could add a little bit more just so he could visibly see it from across the room. Now I don't want to leave, since there's still product here, I don't want to leave it exposed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this paper towel and cover over the top of it. This way I can't accidentally dip my hand, or my client can't accidentally fall into it, or maybe a fly falls into it, what have you be. Just make sure that you close it just so we're working nice and clean. Now that my predisposition test is complete, I'm going to be moving on into my virgin hair lightening. Now, there's a lot to do with the virgin hair lightening, so I'm going to be working in one of the 2 front panels because there's a lower density of hair, and more importantly, I'm going to be coloring a lot more. So, probably should have done this before, but put on your gloves before you do a predisposition test because you are working with the chemical. But all we're going to be doing with that virgin lightening is that we're going to be working with 1/8 of an inch partings. Lightener has always worked with the 1/8 of an inch parting. And we're going to apply 1/2 inch from the scalp to 1 inch to the porous ends. So not through, but to. Go. So now that I have my gloves on, I'm going to take my bowl. Now again, this is the light bowl. I'm going to take my lightener product and I'm going to dispense it over the trash. Get a nice healthy amount. Now you can see that I'm using shaving cream here today. But at your board exam, you'll be using conditioner or cholesterol. Wipe off my hands real quick. You can see I have a little bit of product on my hand. It's not going to be the end of the world. Because again, I will be coloring the majority of the hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my first 1/8 of an inch section. And you can see that it is pretty thin. Now your section sizes are relevant because of the product that you're working with. So again, you want it to be a nice 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to go 1/2 inch away from the scalp to about 1 inch towards the ends. So 1/2 inch away from the scalp to 1 inch to the ends. And you're going to see that the method that I use here is I'm going to grab my hair and I'm going to place my tint brush underneath and I'm going to prop that up so it just hangs right over the top. The reason I like doing this is because it's going to give me a little bit more flexibility in terms of working cleaner. Now I'm going to continue on by taking another 1/8 of an inch section, and you can see how the sections remain visible because of how I've propped up that hair. And I'll continue on throughout the entire head. Once again, staying 1/2 inch away from the scalp to the porous ends, so 1 inch from the ends. And you'll see that I brace the hair once more and lay it gently right over the top again. So when you look at it from the front, you can see the visible separation and the section size of 1/8 of an inch from across the room. You can see that I'm wrapping up my last section right here. You'll see that throughout my entire procedure, everything remained relatively consistent in terms of my section size, how I brace the hair, and going from 1/2 inch from the scalp to 1 inch towards the porous ends. So again, if we were to look at it from the side, you can see my 1/8 of an inch partings all the way down through. And that's exactly what we want to see. Now again, you only have 10 minutes to finish this portion of the examination before you move into the basic color retouch. In the case that you finish early, just take a step back, wait for further instructions, and the examiner will tell you further instructions. I'll tell you that you have 10 minutes to do the retouch section of the examination, in which case you're going to come around to the other side and do the retouch of the examination as well. Now the reason why we did the virgin hair lightening in the front and we're leaving the back for the retouch is because we're going from the scalp to 2 inches out. So we're just retouching the hair about this much all the way in the back panel. We don't have to color the entirety of the hair like we did in the front. So what that's gonna look like is, because I'm working with color now, is I'm gonna be working with the 1/4 inch sections. So my sections are gonna be twice as big as what I was working with before. And before I do any of that, I'm gonna go back into my color bowl that I used for my predisposition test and dispense a little bit more product into it over the trash can. Now, to make my life a little bit easier, before I actually even go into my 1/4 inch sections, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna outline the segment that I'm working in. And because I'm going 2 inches out, I can make this outline relatively heavy. And I can work my way through this. So because the hair is a little bit longer and I have the product at the base, I'm gonna work my way from top to bottom. It's not to say that you can't go from bottom to top, but in this case, I'm just gonna go from top to bottom. Reason being, because I could take a nice 1/4 inch section. If you actually look at the length of my tint brush, this is approximately 2 inches. So I could just drag this across sideways. And again, I'm gonna brace it off to the side so I'm working nice and clean. I'm going to continue on taking a 1/4 inch section. Grab a little bit more product. Again, drag that product sideways and you'll see that I get my nice 2 inches. Apply to both sides. Make sure that there's enough product that is visible for the examiner to see. And continue on all the way down to the bottom. Remember that this is the color retouch portion. We're utilizing 2 inches out. So you can see with the clean sections that I've taken, as I start to pull this hair back down, you can see each of those sections and how they just fall back down into place, just where I've taken them. You can see that the product is applied 2 inches out. On the off chance that you do have a little bit of product that comes out a little bit further, you just rub that in, but don't step away from the head until you make sure that it's only about 2 inches out. If it's a little bit more, it's not the end of the world. You can see how much quicker the color retouch portion goes compared to the virgin, just because of how much hair that you're hitting, and that's why, again, you want to focus on putting that in the back segments.